The busy halls of Atlanta Memorial Hospital buzzed with the usual morning activity as Sarah Jenkins made her way to the physical therapy department. At 32 years old, Sarah had already made a name for herself as one of the most dedicated therapists in the facility. Her beautiful dark skin glowed with natural confidence, and her gentle eyes carried the kind of warmth that instantly put patients at ease. That Wednesday morning started like any other. Sarah checked her patient list while sipping her morning coffee, her braided hair neatly tied back in a professional bun. The name Marcus Thompson appeared on her schedule, a new patient transferred from the trauma ward. According to his file, he was a former college basketball player who had lost the use of his legs in a terrible car accident 3 months ago. Room 305, Sarah muttered to herself, gathering her equipment and heading down the corridor. She had seen many cases like this before, young athletes struggling to accept their new reality. Most of them came in angry, depressed, or both. She prepared herself for another challenging first session. When Sarah entered the room, she was surprised to find a handsome man in his mid-30s sitting in his wheelchair by the window. Unlike most new patients, Marcus Thompson wasn't staring blankly at the walls or looking down in despair. Instead, he was reading a book, and the morning sunlight highlighted his strong features and warm brown eyes. "Good morning, Mr. Thompson," Sarah said professionally. "I'm Sarah Jenkins, and I'll be your physical therapist." Marcus looked up from his book and gave her a smile that seemed to light up the whole room. "Please call me Marcus. Mr. Thompson makes me sound like my father." There was something different about him, a spark of life that many patients in his situation had lost. Despite being confined to the wheelchair, his upper body was still athletic, and his shoulders remained squared with confidence. "So, Marcus," Sarah began, sitting down to review his file, "I see you played basketball for Georgia State." "Yeah, and now I'm working on becoming the world's first wheelchair basketball champion," he joked, his eyes twinkling with humor. Sarah couldn't help but laugh. Usually, patients didn't joke about their condition so soon after their accidents. Well, that's certainly a positive attitude to have. As they began their first therapy session, Sarah noticed how Marcus approached each exercise with determination. He didn't complain when things were difficult, and he asked intelligent questions about his recovery process. When he struggled with a particular movement, instead of getting frustrated, he would take a deep breath and try again. "You know," Marcus said during a break, wiping sweat from his brow, "I spent the first month feeling sorry for myself. Then my little sister came to visit me in the hospital. She's deaf, has been since birth, but she's never let it stop her from living her life. Seeing her success made me realize that this wheelchair doesn't have to be the end of my story." Sarah felt something stir in her heart. In her 5 years as a physical therapist, she had never met a patient with such a profound perspective so soon after their injury. Most took years to reach this level of acceptance. Throughout the session, they talked about everything from their favorite books to their families. Sarah learned that Marcus had been teaching high school mathematics before his accident, and he hoped to return to teaching once he adjusted to his new life. His passion for education showed in the way his face lit up when he talked about his students. As the first session came to an end, Sarah found herself looking forward to their next meeting, something she tried not to do with patients. There was just something special about Marcus Thompson. Maybe it was his infectious smile, or perhaps it was the way he faced his challenges head-on with grace and humor. "Same time tomorrow?" Marcus asked as Sarah helped him adjust his wheelchair. "Actually, I have you scheduled for 2 p.m. tomorrow," Sarah replied, checking her calendar. "Perfect. I'll bring the jokes, you bring the torture devices," he grinned, referring to the therapy equipment. As Sarah watched him wheel himself out of the therapy room, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of something important. Little did she know that this ordinary Wednesday morning would mark the start of an extraordinary journey that would change both their lives forever. 2 months passed quickly at Atlanta Memorial Hospital. Sarah found herself looking forward to her therapy sessions with Marcus more than she wanted to admit. His scheduled appointments became the highlight of her workday, though she tried to keep things strictly professional. One rainy afternoon, as Sarah was helping Marcus with his arm-strengthening exercises, he suddenly said, "You know, my coffee-making skills haven't been affected by this wheelchair at all. I still make the best cappuccino in Atlanta." Sarah raised an eyebrow, amused by his random comment. "Is that so?" "There's this nice coffee shop just down the street," Marcus continued, his voice slightly nervous. Maybe after my session tomorrow, you could let me prove it? That is, if it's okay to have coffee with a patient. Sarah hesitated. She had never dated a patient before, and the thought made her slightly uncomfortable. But technically, Marcus's therapy would be finished next week. After a moment's thought, she smiled and said, "I'd like that, but maybe we should wait until after your therapy ends next week." Marcus's face lit up. "Deal. I got 7 days to perfect my wheelchair barista skills." The following week, true to his word, Marcus took Sarah to the small coffee shop. He had called ahead to make sure they had wheelchair access, and the staff knew him by name. As promised, he prepared her coffee himself, having befriended the shop owner during his recovery. However, their happiness soon faced its first real test. When Sarah told her family about Marcus, her mother Joyce's reaction wasn't what she had hoped for. "A white man in a wheelchair," Joyce exclaimed during their weekly Sunday dinner. "Sarah, baby, life is already hard enough for a black woman in this world. Why do you want to make things more difficult for yourself?" Sarah put down her fork, trying to stay calm. "Mama, Marcus is kind, intelligent, and makes me laugh. His wheelchair and his skin color don't change who he is inside." Her father, Thomas, who had been quiet until then, spoke up. "Your mother's just worried about you, sweetheart. We've seen how people can be. Are you ready for the stares? The whispers? Not just because you're a mixed couple, but because of his disability too." "I deal with stares every day at work, Daddy," Sarah replied firmly. "I'm a physical therapist. I know exactly what life with a disability means." Meanwhile, Marcus was having his own family dinner across town. His sister Emma, using sign language which Marcus translated for Sarah later, was the only one who immediately supported their relationship. "You've been happier since you met her," Emma signed enthusiastically. "Anyone can see that." But Marcus's mother, Barbara, wasn't as accepting. "Marcus, dear, are you sure about this? It's not that I have anything against. Well, but people will talk, and you already have so many challenges." Marcus stopped her mid-sentence. "Mom, Sarah doesn't see my disability as a challenge, and I don't see our different races as a problem. She sees me for who I am, and I see her for who she is." Despite their family's concerns, Sarah and Marcus continued dating. They discovered they had more in common than they thought. Both loved old movies, enjoyed solving crossword puzzles, and shared a dry sense of humor that others didn't always get. One evening, as they sat in the park watching the sunset, Marcus spoke about his fears. "Sometimes I worry that I'll hold you back," he admitted. "That you'll get tired of having to consider wheelchair access everywhere we go or dealing with people's stares." Sarah took his hand. "You know what I see when I look at you? I see the man who makes me laugh even on my worst days. The man who remembers how I like my coffee and calls to check on me after my late shifts. The wheelchair is just a part of you, like my braids are a part of me." As the sun disappeared behind the trees, they both knew they were breaking through more than just their family's prejudices. They were breaking through their own fears and society's limitations. Their love was growing stronger, showing everyone around them that true connection doesn't see color or disability, it sees the heart. With each passing day, Sarah and Marcus were proving that love could bridge any gap, break any barrier, and silence any doubt. After 2 years of dating, Marcus knew it was time to take the next big step. He wanted to propose to Sarah in a way she would never forget, but he needed help to make it perfect. His plan would require assistance from many people, including Sarah's co-workers at Atlanta Memorial Hospital. Marcus spent weeks secretly meeting with Dr. Johnson, Sarah's boss, to arrange everything. The rehabilitation center where they first met would become the setting for their love story's next chapter. Every staff member who had watched their relationship grow was excited to help with the surprise. "Remember? Everyone," Marcus told the gathered hospital staff during a secret meeting. "Sarah thinks she's coming in for a special patient presentation next Tuesday. Nobody say a word to her." The big day arrived on a bright spring morning. Sarah walked into work wearing her usual blue scrubs, her hair neatly braided, not suspecting anything special about this Tuesday. When Dr. Johnson asked her to come to the main rehabilitation room for a special presentation at 2 p.m., she simply nodded and continued with her morning patients. Behind the scenes, Marcus was nervous but ready. He had been practicing for months in secret with his personal physical therapist for this moment. With the help of a new supportive walking frame, he had learned to stand for short periods. It wasn't easy, and he could only do it for a few minutes, but it would be enough. At exactly 2 p.m., Sarah walked into the rehabilitation room. She stopped in surprise when she saw all her coworkers gathered there, along with some of her former patients. The room was decorated with soft white lights and flowers. Her favorite song was playing quietly in the background. "What's going on?" Sarah asked, looking around confused. Then she saw Marcus wheeling himself to the center of the room. He was wearing a sharp black suit, something she rarely saw him in. Her heart started beating faster as she realized this might be more than a regular presentation. "Sarah Jenkins," Marcus began, his voice strong despite his nerves. "2 years ago, in this very room, you helped me find strength I didn't know I had. You showed me that life doesn't end when things get difficult. It just takes a different path." The room fell completely silent as Marcus reached for the walking frame beside him. 2 physical therapists stood nearby, ready to help if needed. Slowly, with great effort, Marcus began to pull himself up. Sarah's hands flew to her mouth as tears filled her eyes. She had never seen Marcus stand before. She knew how hard he must have worked for this moment. With assistance, Marcus managed to get down on one knee. It wasn't graceful, and he needed help to balance, but to Sarah, it was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. His hands shook slightly as he pulled out a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. "From the moment I met you, you saw past my wheelchair. You saw me for who I am, not what I couldn't do. You loved me through every challenge, every family dinner gone wrong, and every difficult day. You've shown me what true love really means." By now, many people in the room were crying, including some of the tough male nurses who claimed they never cried. Sarah's best friend from work was recording everything on her phone, tears streaming down her face. "Sarah Jenkins, will you marry me?" Marcus opened the box, revealing a beautiful diamond ring that sparkled under the room's lights. Sarah was crying so hard she could barely speak. She nodded repeatedly before finally managing to say, "Yes. Yes, of course, yes." The room erupted in cheers and applause as Sarah carefully helped Marcus back into his wheelchair before he got too tired. She sat on his lap, something she often did when they were alone, and kissed him as their friends and colleagues celebrated around them. Dr. Johnson brought out champagne and glasses that had been hidden in his office. Everyone gathered around to congratulate the happy couple. Sarah couldn't stop looking at her ring and at Marcus, her heart full of love and pride. Later that evening, as they celebrated privately at their favorite restaurant, Sarah asked, "How long have you been practicing standing?" Marcus grinned. 6 months. It was worth every minute to see your face. Though I think I'll stick to proposing from my wheelchair if I ever have to do it again." Sarah laughed and squeezed his hand. "This was the one and only time you'll need to propose, Marcus Thompson. You're stuck with me now." As they enjoyed their dinner, both Sarah and Marcus knew that this was just the beginning of their greatest adventure together. Their love story was proving to everyone that true love knows no boundaries, whether they be physical or social. Planning a wedding was proving to be more complicated than Sarah and Marcus had imagined. 3 months had passed since the proposal, and every weekend seemed to bring new challenges. Sarah sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by wedding magazines and venue brochures, while Marcus worked on their budget spreadsheet on his laptop. "Here's another problem," Sarah sighed, pointing to a beautiful garden venue photo. "They said they're wheelchair accessible, but their ramp is so steep it would be dangerous. And the bathroom isn't even wide enough for your chair." Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. "Maybe we should hire that wedding planner your friend recommended. Lisa, right? The one who planned that wheelchair-friendly wedding last year?" The next day, they met Lisa Parker, a cheerful woman with bright red hair and 20 years of wedding planning experience. She listened carefully as Sarah and Marcus explained their needs. Wheelchair-accessible venues, comfortable seating arrangements for Marcus during the ceremony, and space for him to move freely during the reception. However, their first challenge came from an unexpected source. During a cake tasting session, the baker kept directing all questions to Sarah, acting as if Marcus wasn't even there. "What flavor would your fiancé prefer?" the baker asked Sarah, despite Marcus sitting right beside her. "Why don't you ask him yourself?" Sarah replied firmly but politely. "He's right here." The baker had the grace to look embarrassed, But this wasn't an isolated incident. Many vendors seemed uncomfortable dealing directly with Marcus, which frustrated both of them. One evening, while visiting Sarah's parents for dinner, her mother Joyce brought up another sensitive topic. "Sarah, honey, have you thought about the first dance? How will that work with the wheelchair?" Before Sarah could respond, Marcus spoke up. "Actually, we've been taking adaptive dance lessons. Our instructor is helping us choreograph something special. It's going to be beautiful." Joyce looked surprised but pleased. She was slowly learning to see beyond her initial prejudices, though she still sometimes said the wrong thing. The biggest hurdle came when they visited Marcus's extended family to share their wedding plans. His elderly aunt Martha pulled Sarah aside during lunch. "Dear," she whispered, though not quietly enough, "are you sure about this? Marriage is hard enough without extra challenges. And what about children? Have you thought about that?" Sarah felt her temper rising but kept her voice calm. "Aunt Martha, Marcus and I have discussed everything, including children. Many people in wheelchairs have beautiful families, but more importantly, we love each other. That's what matters most." Later that night, back at their apartment, Sarah found Marcus sitting quietly by the window. She knew that look on his face. He was worried about something. "What's wrong?" she asked, sitting on the couch next to his wheelchair. "I overheard what Aunt Martha said," he admitted. "And it got me thinking, are we being fair to our future kids? Will they be embarrassed having a dad in a wheelchair?" Sarah turned to face him fully. "Marcus Thompson, listen to me. Any child would be lucky to have you as their father. You're kind, smart, funny, and more capable than most people I know. Our kids will be proud of you, just like I am." Marcus smiled, but then another worry crossed his face. "There's something else. The wedding budget. These accessible venues cost more than regular ones. Maybe we should just have a small ceremony." "No way," Sarah said firmly. "We'll figure it out. Lissa already found 3 possible venues within our budget. And remember what my dad said. He and Mama want to help with the costs. They're finally excited about this wedding." Just then, Sarah's phone buzzed. It was a message from Lisa with photos of a beautiful waterfront venue. It had proper ramps, wide doorways, an accessible bathroom, and even a special wheelchair-friendly dance floor. Best of all, it was within their budget. "Look," Sarah exclaimed, showing Marcus the photos. "It's perfect." As they looked through the pictures together, both felt their worries lifting. Yes, planning their wedding had challenges, but they were facing them together. Every solved problem made them stronger as a couple. "You know what?" Marcus said, pulling Sarah onto his lap, something that always made her laugh. "As long as I get to marry you, everything else is just details." Sarah kissed him softly. "Exactly. Though I still want that accessible dance floor. I've been practicing too hard to give up our first dance now." Their laughter filled the apartment, drowning out any remaining doubts. They were proving that love doesn't need perfect circumstances. It just needs perfect commitment to each other. The bell above, Bella's bridal boutique, chimed as Sarah entered for her final dress fitting, just 1 week before the wedding. Her mother Joyce, best friend Tamika, and Marcus's sister Emma accompanied her on this special day. Emma's interpreter, Maria, was also there to help with communication. "This is it," Sarah said nervously, smoothing her hands over her casual clothes. "The last fitting before the big day." Bella, the shop owner who had helped Sarah find her perfect dress 3 months ago, greeted them warmly. "Your dress is ready, darling. You're going to look absolutely beautiful." The dress hung majestically in the private fitting room, a stunning off-shoulder gown with delicate lace details. Sarah had chosen it because the style would look perfect whether she was standing or sitting on Marcus's lap, which she planned to do during some of their wedding photos. As Bella and her assistant helped Sarah into the dress, something unusual happened. The assistant noticed a small bump near the hem while adjusting the length. "That's strange," the assistant said, feeling the area carefully. "There seems to be something sewn into the hem." Sarah looked down, confused. "What do you mean?" Bella examined the spot and carefully opened a few stitches. To everyone's surprise, she pulled out a small, sealed envelope. Sarah's name was written on it in handwriting she didn't recognize. "What in the world?" Joyce stepped closer, peering at the mysterious envelope. With trembling fingers, Sarah opened it. Inside was a single key and a note written in elegant handwriting. Sarah. This key opens something precious. Your journey to find it begins at the place where your love story started. Go there after your fitting. A friend. Girl, this is like something out of a movie, Tamika exclaimed, reading the note over Sarah's shoulder. Emma signed rapidly to Maria, who translated. Could it be from Marcus? Sarah shook her head. No, this isn't his handwriting. Besides, he's at his physical therapy appointment right now. The mystery of the key temporarily overshadowed the dress fitting. Even as Bella made the final adjustments, everyone kept speculating about what it might mean. The place where your love story started, Joyce repeated thoughtfully. That would be the hospital, wouldn't it? Sarah nodded, her mind racing. After quickly changing back into her regular clothes, she decided she couldn't wait. She had to solve this mystery. Mom, can you take the dress home? Sarah asked. I need to go to the hospital. Her mother agreed, and Tamika insisted on accompanying her friend. They drove to Atlanta Memorial Hospital, Sarah's heart beating faster with each mile. When they arrived, Sarah went straight to room 305, the physical therapy room where she had first met Marcus, but it was empty. Can I help you? A familiar voice asked. It was Dr. Johnson, Sarah's old boss. Someone left me this key, Sarah explained, showing him the note. It led me here, but I don't know what I'm looking for. A small smile played on Dr. Johnson's lips. Ah, yes, follow me. He led Sarah and Tamika to his office, where he unlocked a cabinet and pulled out another envelope. This one contained a small memory card and another note. The truth isn't always what it seems. Watch me. Sarah borrowed Dr. Johnson's computer to view the contents of the memory card. What she saw made her gasp. The video showed Marcus in a research facility she didn't recognize. He was participating in some kind of medical procedure, wearing equipment she had never seen before. The date stamp showed it was from 3 months ago. What is this? Sarah whispered, watching Marcus move his legs in ways she thought impossible. Dr. Johnson placed a hand on her shoulder. Sarah, there's something about Marcus's condition that you need to know, but he should be the one to tell you. Just then, Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Meet me at our coffee shop. There's something important I need to tell you. Sarah sat frozen, staring at her phone. The dress fitting had led to a discovery that would change everything. As she and Tamika rushed to the coffee shop, Sarah's mind raced with questions. What was Marcus hiding? Why had he kept this secret? And most importantly, would it change their future together? The answers waited for her at the small coffee shop where they had shared their first date, just a few blocks away. Sarah's hands trembled as she pushed open the door to their favorite coffee shop. The familiar bell chimed above her head, but today it seemed to ring with extra significance. Marcus was already there, sitting at their usual corner table, 2 cups of coffee waiting. Tamika gave Sarah's hand a quick squeeze. I'll wait in the car, she whispered, understanding this moment needed to be private. As Sarah approached the table, she noticed Marcus looked nervous, something she rarely saw in him. His usual confident smile was replaced with a worried expression. I guess you found the key, Marcus said softly as Sarah sat down. Sarah placed both the key and memory card on the table between them. Marcus, what's going on? I saw the video at the hospital. What aren't you telling me? Marcus took a deep breath. Remember 6 months ago when Dr. Peterson, that specialist from California, came to see me? Sarah nodded. Dr. Peterson had examined Marcus for what they had said was a routine checkup. Well, it wasn't just a regular visit, Marcus continued. He selected me for an experimental medical program. Only 20 people in the country qualified for it. He pulled out his tablet and showed Sarah more videos and documents. They're testing a new type of nerve stimulation treatment. It's a combination of special electronics and intensive physical therapy that might help people with spinal cord injuries regain some movement. Sarah's eyes widened as she looked through the information. But why didn't you tell me? We tell each other everything. Marcus reached across the table and took her hands. I wanted to, Sarah, every single day, but the doctors said not to share the information with anyone until they were sure it was working. They didn't want to give false hope to other patients. And is it working? Sarah asked, hardly daring to breathe. Marcus smiled, though his eyes were wet with tears. Yes, slowly but surely, I can feel more sensation in my legs now. With the special equipment, I can even move them a little. The doctors think I might eventually be able to stand for longer periods and maybe even take a few steps with support. Sarah remembered the proposal, how he had managed to kneel. That's why you could stand that day, wasn't it? You weren't just practicing with regular physical therapy. Marcus nodded. I had the device activated. The doctors allowed it for that special moment. But Sarah, I need you to understand something very important. He squeezed her hands tighter. This treatment isn't a cure. I'll still need my wheelchair most of the time. The progress is very slow, and there's no guarantee how much mobility I'll regain. I didn't tell you because I was afraid. Afraid of what? Sarah asked gently. Afraid of disappointing you. Afraid you might think I'd be completely walking by our wedding day. Afraid you might be angry I kept this secret. Sarah moved her chair closer to Marcus's wheelchair. The only thing that disappoints me is that you carried this burden alone. We're supposed to be partners, remember? She touched his cheek softly. I fell in love with you, Marcus Thompson, not with your wheelchair or your ability to walk. Whether you take one step or 1,000, whether you use a wheelchair for the rest of our lives or not, it doesn't change how I feel about you. Marcus let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. The doctors want to document everything, including our wedding day. They're especially interested in our first dance. The device might help me stand for part of it. Sarah wiped away happy tears. Is that why Lisa was so insistent about that special dance floor? Yes, Marcus laughed. She's been in on it for the past month. The whole plan with the key and memory card was actually her idea. She said every bride deserves a little mystery before her wedding. Just then, Sarah's phone buzzed. It was a message from Tamika. Everything okay in there? The suspense is killing me. Sarah showed Marcus the message, and they both laughed. She quickly typed back, everything is perfect. Better than perfect. Looking back at Marcus, Sarah smiled. No more secrets. No more secrets, Marcus promised. Though I do have one more surprise planned for our wedding day. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Should I be worried? Marcus grinned, looking more like himself again. Let's just say you might want to practice your dance steps a little more. As they sat in their favorite coffee shop, sharing this moment of truth and trust, both Sarah and Marcus felt their bond grow even stronger. Sometimes the biggest challenges in life lead to the most beautiful revelations. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear. At the waterfront venue, flowers and ribbons decorated the wheelchair-accessible paths, and excitement filled the air. In the bridal suite, Sarah sat in front of a mirror as her mother put the final touches on her hair. You look beautiful, baby, Joyce said, carefully adjusting Sarah's veil. Her mother's hands trembled slightly as she pinned it in place. After all their early doubts, Joyce and Thomas had become Marcus's biggest supporters. Meanwhile, in the groom's room, Marcus was getting ready with help from his best man, his brother Michael. The special medical device was carefully hidden under his wedding suit, with Dr. Peterson himself there to make sure everything worked perfectly. Are you sure you want to do this? Michael asked, helping Marcus with his bow tie. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. Marcus smiled confidently. I'm not trying to prove anything. I just want to give Sarah a moment she'll never forget. As guests arrived, they noticed something unusual. Among the typical wedding decorations, there were several professional cameras set up around the venue. The medical team needed to document everything for their research, but most guests assumed they were just regular wedding videographers. Finally, it was time. The music started playing, and the wedding party began their procession. Sarah's father, Thomas, waited with her at the beginning of the aisle. Ready, princess? He asked, his eyes misty with tears. Sarah took a deep breath and nodded. As she stepped into view, everyone stood. Marcus, waiting at the altar in his wheelchair, felt his heart skip a beat. Sarah was absolutely stunning in her off-shoulder wedding dress, which sparkled in the sunlight. But what happened next left everyone speechless. As Sarah reached the halfway point of the aisle, Marcus pressed a small button on his wheelchair. The special device activated, and with help from Michael and Dr. Peterson, he slowly rose to his feet. Gasps filled the air. Sarah stopped walking, her hand covering her mouth in surprise. Even Thomas, who was walking her down the aisle, froze in amazement. Using the specially designed walker that had been disguised as part of the altar decorations, Marcus stood tall, waiting for his bride. Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she and her father completed their walk to the altar. "Hi," Marcus whispered when she reached him, standing eye to eye with her for the first time. "Hi yourself," Sarah whispered back, her voice full of emotion. The ceremony was beautiful, but what everyone would remember most was the love that radiated from the couple as they stood together, defying all odds and expectations. When it was time for their first dance, Marcus surprised everyone again. With the device's help and lots of practice, he and Sarah performed a beautiful wheelchair ballroom dance routine. For part of the dance, Marcus stayed in his chair, spinning Sarah gracefully. Then, for the final minute, he stood again, holding her close as they swayed to the music. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. Even the medical team, who had seen many breakthroughs, were wiping away tears. During the reception, Marcus's Aunt Martha approached Sarah. "I was wrong," she admitted, hugging her new niece. "You two were meant for each other." Sarah's mother couldn't stop telling everyone around her, "That's my daughter and son-in-law." Her pride was evident in every word, all her former doubts forgotten. As the evening went on, Marcus needed to return to his wheelchair, but nobody minded. The moments he had stood were not about proving anything. They were about sharing his progress with the people he loved most. Later, during a quiet moment, Sarah and Marcus snuck away to the venue's peaceful garden. "You've been full of surprises, Mr. Thompson," Sarah said, sitting on Marcus's lap as they looked at the stars. "Well, Mrs. Thompson," Marcus replied, "I wanted to show everyone what I've learned in therapy. But more importantly, I wanted to show them what you've known all along, that anything is possible with love and determination." Sarah leaned her head on his shoulder. "Standing or sitting, you're the man of my dreams." "And you're the woman who made all my dreams come true," Marcus said, pulling her closer. As they shared a kiss under the stars, both knew that this was just the beginning of their story. The medical treatment would continue, with its ups and downs, but they would face everything together. Their wedding day had shown everyone that love doesn't just break barriers, it soars right over them. 1 year had passed since Sarah and Marcus Thompson's incredible wedding day. Their story had spread far beyond Atlanta, inspiring people across the country. The video of their wedding dance had gone viral, reaching millions of views and touching hearts worldwide. On their first anniversary, Sarah and Marcus sat in their new accessible home, looking through their wedding album. The house was specially designed with wide doorways, smooth floors, and a state-of-the-art therapy room where Marcus could continue his treatments. "Can you believe how much has changed in just 1 year?" Sarah asked, showing Marcus a photo of their first dance. Indeed, a lot had changed. The experimental treatment had continued to show promising results. Though Marcus still primarily used his wheelchair, he could now stand and take supported steps for longer periods. More importantly, they had started a foundation called Love Without Limits to help other disabled individuals access experimental treatments and rehabilitation programs. Their living room wall displayed thank you letters from people they helped. One letter was from a young girl named Maria, who received a specialized wheelchair through their foundation. Another was from a veteran who got access to the same experimental treatment as Marcus. That morning, they had even bigger news to celebrate. Sarah placed a small ultrasound picture next to their wedding photo. "The doctor says everything looks perfect," she said, touching her slightly rounded belly. They were expecting twins, a boy and a girl, 2 and 6 months. Marcus beamed with pride. His initial fears about being a father in a wheelchair had disappeared. With Sarah's help, they had already prepared a nursery with adaptations that would allow Marcus to fully participate in childcare. "Remember how your Aunt Martha worried about us having kids?" Marcus laughed, pulling Sarah onto his lap, still their favorite way to sit together. "And now she's buying every baby item she sees," Sarah replied, grinning. "I think she's more excited than my own mother, if that's possible." Their families had completely changed their attitudes. Joyce, Sarah's mother, now led a support group for families of interracial couples. Marcus's mother, Barbara, volunteered at their foundation, helping other parents understand that disability didn't define their children's lives. The medical team continued to document Marcus's progress. Dr. Peterson visited monthly to adjust the nerve stimulation device and track his improvement. The research project had expanded to include 50 more patients, partly due to the attention Marcus and Sarah's story had brought to the program. That evening, they hosted a small dinner party. Their guests included Dr. Johnson from the hospital, Lisa, their former wedding planner, now a close friend, and several people who had received help from their foundation. The dining room buzzed with conversation and laughter. "Tomorrow's the big day, right?" Lisa asked during dinner. Sarah nodded excitedly. "Marcus is speaking at the National Medical Research Conference. They want him to share our story and the impact of the treatment program. Don't forget to mention that your wife is the best physical therapist in Atlanta," Dr. Johnson added, making everyone laugh. Sarah had recently opened her own physical therapy clinic, specializing in treating patients with spinal cord injuries. After their guests left, Marcus and Sarah sat on their back porch, watching the sunset. Marcus was practicing standing with his newer, more advanced walking frame, a daily exercise that had become part of their routine. "You know what I love most about our story?" Sarah said, helping Marcus stay balanced. "It's not just about what we overcame, it's about what we built together." Marcus smiled, taking a few supported steps. "We didn't just break barriers, we shattered expectations. Now we're helping others do the same." Sarah touched her growing belly, and soon we'll have 2 more reasons to keep pushing forward. 2 more reasons to show the world that love knows no limits, Marcus added, carefully sitting back in his wheelchair. "Though I have to admit, I'm a little nervous about chasing after 2 babies in this chair." Sarah laughed. "Good thing you married a physical therapist who knows all about adaptive parenting techniques." As the sun set on another day in their extraordinary life together, both Sarah and Marcus felt grateful for their journey. Their love story had become more than just their own. It had become a beacon of hope for others facing similar challenges. Their message was simple but powerful. True love doesn't see limitations, it sees possibilities. With faith, determination, and the right partner by your side, any obstacle can become an opportunity to show the world what real love can achieve.